Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful woman who lived in the quiet city of Enugu. Her name was Oni, and she was a busy caterer who catered for numerous events in the city. Despite being a big caterer, Oni had no car of her own. She would struggle daily with public transportation, carrying food trays and supplies in her hands whilst navigating through the bustling city of Enugu. It was so exhausting. But Oni never let her struggles affect her passion for cooking. One day, she was hired to cater for the exclusive dinner at the residence of Chifemeka Okafor, one of the wealthiest men in the city. His mansion sat on the outskirts of town, making it difficult for Oni to easily transport the food that she had prepared. She hired a taxi to the event. And even then, the driver had to stop multiple times to refuel his car and navigate his way through police checkpoints. By the time she arrived at Chif's residence, she was breathless and drenched in sweat. Despite the struggle, Oni put on a bright smile as she served the guests with grace. The aroma of her dishes filled the air, and soon, every guest was singing praises about her cooking. Chifemeka was so impressed by her dedication. However, he could not help but notice her obvious struggles. At the end of the event, as Oni was waiting for her taxi to arrive, Chifemeka called her aside and commended her for the job well done. "You did an amazing job tonight, Oni," he said with a warm smile on his face. "However, I noticed how difficult it was for you to get here," he said to Oni, revealing that a caterer like her should have a reliable means of transportation. Oni nodded, knowing that Chif had a point. She revealed to him that she was currently saving up money to get a car, and Chif smiled and gestured towards his garage, where several luxury cars were parked. He pointed to a black SUV, one of the many vehicles that he hardly ever used. "Take it," he simply said to Oni, whose eyes widened in disbelief. "Chif, this is too much." "Oh," Oni said, as Chif assured her that it was nothing. His garage was already filled with exotic cars, and Chif, being an extremely wealthy man, barely used them all. "You can have it, Oni, or leave it here and let it keep gathering dust," he said to Oni, who dropped to her knees in gratitude. "Thank you, sir. May God bless you abundantly," she said as she rushed into the car in excitement. Oni drove the car home that night. Reeling in shock, when she arrived home, her friends gathered around the car, with their eyes wide in disbelief. "Oni, is this really yours?" her friend Aluchi asked, running a hand over the car. "Yes, sir. Chifemeka gifted it to me," she said as everyone opened their mouth in shock. For days, Oni admired the car. Feeling her life had taken a miraculous turn, she no longer had to struggle with public transport, and business would now be much easier. A week later, Oni received an order for a large event in a neighboring town. Excited, she decided to take the car for its first catering delivery. As she drove through the quiet street, something odd happened. The car's radio suddenly switched on by itself. At first, Oni thought it was a glitch, but then she heard a strange whisper coming from the car radio, calling out a certain address repeatedly. Oni thought that it was her mind messing with her, seeing that she didn't have enough rest at night because of the huge orders that she had to prepare. She continued driving, and then suddenly the car jerked violently, causing her heart to skip a beat. The steering wheel became stiff, and before she could react, the car came to a complete stop. "Not today," Oni grumbled in frustration, as her customer called her repeatedly to know where she was with the food. "The event is about to start. Where are you?" her customer asked, as Oni looked around for the address where the car had stopped her. The straight sign at the corner caught her eye, and a chill ran down her spine. It was the exact address that she had heard repeatedly on the car radio. Her hands trembled as she checked the map on her phone. There was no mistake. She had never been here before. Yet, the car had brought her straight to this place. Oni swallowed hard, as she wondered what this could mean. She looked around, but nothing seemed suspicious. Did the car bring me here? She asked herself, as she wondered what everything meant, filled with so much curiosity. Oni decided to approach the address to see what she could find. She approached the house, which looked well taken care of. A car was parked outside, and Oni could hear voices in the house. She knocked on the door, and a young man answered. Oni, knowing how awkward it was to knock on a stranger's door without any reasonable explanation, quickly apologized for disturbing him. "I'm so sorry to disturb, but my car stopped right in front of your house, and I wanted to see if maybe you knew a mechanic nearby." The young man's expression changed instantly. His friendly smile faded, and he took a step back, looking past Oni at the black SUV parked by the roadside. "You came in that car?" he asked Oni, who could sense a bit of fear in his voice. Oni stood there and watched as the young man warned her never to come close to him again. He banged the door to her face, leaving Oni in complete shock. Oni stood there frozen, staring at the closed door. Her heart pounded in her chest. What just happened? Why has this man reacted like this? She asked herself as she turned back to her car, feeling so uneasy. The road was quiet, the air thick with tension. Something was definitely wrong, and Oni could sense it. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out her phone, which was now ringing. Oni picked up the call and heard a strange voice, which commanded her to run. Filled with so much terror, Oni rushed to the car, and immediately the car came on. She drove quickly to the venue and met her angry customer, who glared at her angrily with her arms crossed. "Oni, what kind of behavior is this?" the customer said angrily. As Oni stammered an apology to her and began to unload the food from her car, Oni could feel a cold sweat trickle down her back. Her entire body was filled with extreme fear. As she pondered on what to do, the thought of driving the car back to her house terrified her greatly. But Oni was left with no choice. She could not abandon the car in her customer's home, but knew that she had to do something about it. She summoned all the courage that she could get and got into the car, deciding within herself to return it to Chief. As she drove the car along the road, Oni felt a strange movement in the car. She tried to figure out what was happening, when hundreds of worms crawled from beneath the car and covered her entire body. Oni was so terrified. She screamed at the top of her voice as she swept the car uncontrollably. Her vision blurred with fear, and her hands shook as she tried to maintain control of the steering wheel. The worms crawled over her arms, her face, her legs, everywhere. Their tiny cold bodies sent chills down her spine. She slammed her foot on the brakes, and the car screeched to a stop in the middle of the road, panting heavily. She threw open the door and jumped out, brushing frantically at her body. But when she looked down, there was nothing. No worms, no movement. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to catch her breath. Was she losing her mind? The car's headlights flickered, and then the voice returned. "Get in," it said. As Oni gasped, stepping away from the car, she turned to run, but her legs refused to move. It felt as though something was holding her in place. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had to get away. She had to take the car back to Chief and demand answers, summoning every ounce of courage. She forced herself back into the car. The moment she sat down, the doors locked automatically. She pounded on the window, screaming, but there was no one around to help her. Then, the car started moving on its own. Oni clutched the steering wheel, but it wouldn't turn. The pedals wouldn't respond too. She was trapped. The car picked up speed, heading straight for the outskirts of town. She had no idea where it was taking her, until the car came to a complete stop. To her amazement, Oni found herself back at the strange house from earlier. The car was parked in front of the house. Oni could feel her hands tremble as she sat in the car, staring at the house, whose doors seemed to be slightly open, slowly. She stepped out of the car and walked towards the house. Oni could hear her heart beating through her chest. She arrived at the door and gently pushed it open for her to walk in. The house was completely silent as Oni made her way through the hall. As she moved from one room to the other, Oni could not understand why the car had brought her to the house again. Was there something that it wanted her to see? Or was there some unfinished business tied to the house? She thought to herself, when suddenly she heard a car pull over in the driveway. Oni rushed to hide, as she couldn't let whoever it was find her wandering around the house. She hid in the wardrobe. As the door of the house shut closed from the distance, Oni could not risk being caught. She held her breath as she peeped through the wardrobe door, hoping to see or hear something, when suddenly the bedroom door swung open and the young man from earlier walked in. He looked so terrified as he dialed a number on his phone. The phone rang repeatedly, and after several trials, the person on the other end picked the call. Oni could feel the tension in the room. She wished she could hear what they were saying, but they spoke in a different language that made it impossible for her to understand. The man's hands trembled as he spoke. His voice was filled with fear, as he kept glancing towards the window, terrified. Oni remained completely still, her heart pounding in her chest. She dared not to move, as she could not risk being caught. Then, the conversation stopped and the man immediately grabbed his keys and left the house. Oni could not beat the feeling that something was up. She jumped out of the wardrobe and peeked through the window, where she saw the man staring at the car in terror. Oni's breath hitched. She ducked behind the curtains, watching as the man cautiously circled the black SUV. His expression filled with fear and uncertainty. His fingers grazed the hood as he stepped back, as though the car might come alive at any moment. After a few 10 seconds, he glanced over his shoulder as if checking if anyone was watching, then hurriedly got into his car and drove off in panic. Oni let out a shaky breath. She had to know what was going on, summoning every ounce of courage. She tiptoed out of the house and approached the SUV. Oni hesitated as her hand hovered over the door handle. She thought of if it was a good idea to get back into the car. Would the car trap her again? She thought to herself when suddenly the car trunk popped open on its own. Oni was so petrified. Her entire body shook as she approached the trunk. Compelled by a mix of dread and curiosity, she stepped forward and peered inside the trunk. A chill ran down her spine as she caught sight of a bloodstained scarf inside the trunk. Oni could feel a cold shiver run down her spine. She stared at the scarf and wondered if the scarf had anything to do with the strange things that had been happening. Oni at this point could not take it any longer. She got into the car, determined to return the car back to Chief. She drove for hours, terrified that something strange would happen, but nothing did. Just as she was about turning into Chief's clothes, Oni caught sight of the strange man again, driving out of Chief's house. Her entire body froze as so many thoughts ran through her mind. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel as she wondered what the strange man was doing in Chief's house. Did Chief know? What connection did they have? These were the questions that lingered in Oni's mind as she decided to return home to think things through. She needed to gather more information before confronting Chief. That night, sleep eluded Oni. She tossed and turned in bed as the events of the past few days replayed in her mind. The car, the strange man, the address. It was all connected, but Oni could not figure out how. By morning, she decided to visit the one person who she believed would have answers. Oni drove the car hesitantly to an old mechanic whose name was Baba Jid, a well-respected man in the city who had great connections and access to information. Oni remembered how Baba Jide helped her friend Aluchi to find the man who stole her car at gunpoint. Even the police, after days of investigation, could not fish him out. But Babajide, using his connections, found the culprit after a few phone calls. Oni knew that if anyone could decipher what had happened, it would be him. She drove into his mechanic workshop and Babajide was so shocked to see her. He wiped his greasy hands on his overall and approached her, asking where she got the car. And Oni narrated the whole story to him. How Chief had gifted her a car that had now turned to her worst nightmare. Babajide listened as his face darkened. My daughter, he began in a low voice. This car has a very dark story. A story I believe that you haven't been told. Oni could feel her heart pound through her chest. What do you mean? She asked, gripping her hands tightly. Babajide sighed heavily and told her to follow him into his workshop. He searched through a pile of old newspapers and pulled out one from the stack. He spread it out for Oni, tapping his finger on a particular headline. Oni's eyes widened as she scanned the article. A young woman, identified as Chinelu Okafor, the only daughter of Chief Emeka Okafor, had vanished without a trace 5 years ago. The report revealed that Chinelu was last seen driving the black SUV. Oni's breath caught in her throat as she remembered the bloodstained scarf she found at the trunk of the car. Babajide narrated the story to her. It was believed that Chief Emeka had a hand in the disappearance of his daughter. Many believed that he used his for rituals because of the amount of wealth he amassed shortly after her disappearance. Others believed that the car was a part of the sacrifice because his daughter disappeared on the same day that he got her the car. Oni's entire body turned cold. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, and the truth was far more terrifying than she had imagined. She returned home and met her friend Olusi, who could not help but notice the terror in her eyes. Olusi frowned, placing a hand on Oni's shoulder as she asked what the problem was. Oni swallowed hard, her voice shaking as she spoke. Oluk, Chief Emeka. He sacrificed his own daughter. Oluchi's eyes widened in horror. What? Are you sure? Oni nodded. Babajide showed me an old newspaper. Chinelua Carver was her name, and she was Chief's only daughter who vanished 5 years ago. The last time she was seen, she was driving this same car. People believe Chief used her for rituals, and that this car was part of the sacrifice. Oni, you need to get rid of this car, she said to Oni, whose face twisted in frustration. That's the problem, Oluchi. I can't just get rid of it. Chief will come after me, and I'm so terrified. I don't know what to do, she said to Olusi, who told her that she had a plan. Oluchi worked at a spa where Chief's wife frequented. She had overheard Chief's wife, Lady Afoma, speaking with her friend about how she was planning to file for a divorce. According to what Oluchi had heard, Lady Afoma suspected her husband of being involved in dark dealings. However, she never had any proof of this. Something had changed recently, and she was now determined to leave him for good. Oluchi turned to Oni, her eyes gleaming with hope. If Chief's wife is already planning to divorce him, she might be willing to help him. This could be our chance to expose him. Oni hesitated. You think she will believe me? Oluchi nodded firmly. She already suspects something. If we give her real evidence, she might finally have the courage to bring him down. Oni took a deep breath. She had nothing to lose and decided to give it a shot. The next day, Oni devised a means to meet with Lady Afoma. She paid for a spa session and purposely placed herself next to Lady Afoma to enable her to have a conversation with her. Lady Afoma was seated comfortably in the spa, her eyes closed as the masseuse walked on her shoulders. Oni sat comfortably next to her as Olusi began to massage her own shoulders. Then they began to have a conversation about Chief, pretending not to know who Lady Afoma was. Men like Chief Emeka think they can do anything and get away with it, she said casually. As Lady Afoma's eyes snapped open, she turned slightly. Glancing at Oni, what do you mean? She asked, her voice calm but laced with curiosity. Oluchi continued her massage as if she hadn't noticed the tension in the air. Oni hesitated for a moment before responding to Lady Afoma. I've heard stories about him. Dark stories. But you know how people gossip in this city. Lady Afoma scoffed. People have always been talking about my husband for years. They say he's involved in all sorts of things, but no one ever has proof. Oni swallowed hard. This was her chance. She lowered her voice and said to Lady Afoma that she had proof. Lady Afoma froze and slowly turned to look at Oni, her expression unreadable. What proof? Oni's hands trembled slightly. She leaned closer. His daughter Chinelu, the car she disappeared in, is in my possession, and I found something in the car that would prove that Chief was the one responsible for his daughter's death. Lady Afoma at this point sat up, looking so interested in her revelation. She asked for full details, assuring Oni that she would be willing to help in bringing Chief down if what she was saying was true. Oni could not believe how easy it was to get Lady Afoma on board. Lady Afoma's expression darkened as Oni revealed everything to her. The car's strange behavior, the bloodstained scarf, the article about Chinelu's disappearance, and even the terrified reaction of the man who had seen the car parked in front of his house. Lady Afoma clenched her fist, her breath coming out in short, furious bursts. I always knew something was up, she said. I knew my husband was hiding something. She turned to Oni, her voice firm, willing to take action immediately. First, the evidence has to be secured because I know how ruthless my husband would be when he realizes that something like this exists. Oni could not help but agree. She stared at Oluchi, who asked her where the scarf was, and Oni revealed that she left the scarf in the trunk of the car. I was too scared to touch it, she said to them, and they advised her to retrieve it immediately and store it in a safe place. Oni heeded their advice and rushed off to her house. To her greatest surprise, the car was no longer parked in her driveway. Oni's heart dropped. She spun around frantically, searching the compound. The black SUV was gone. Panic surged through her veins. Had she found out? Had someone stolen the car? Or worse, had the car moved on its own? She rushed back inside and grabbed her phone. Dialing Oluchi's number with trembling fingers. Oluchi, the car is gone. She whispered in horror. What? Oluchi asked shockingly as she asked if she left her gate open. No, I locked everything, or it's not here. Oluchi, the car is gone. Oluchi was silent for a moment. Oni, listen. Get out of that house now. Come to my place immediately. Oni did not hesitate. She grabbed her purse and bolted out of the house. Fear gripped her like a vice as she hailed a passing tricycle and instructed the driver to take her straight to Oluchi's house. By the time she arrived, her hands were shaking uncontrollably. Oluchi pulled her inside and locked the door. Did anyone see you? Oluchi asked as Oni shook her head, her breath ragged. I don't think so. But Oluchi, what if Chief knows? What if he took the car? Or maybe the car moved on its own. Oni could not help but shake in fear. That car wasn't normal. It had led her to that strange house. It had locked her inside. It had whispered to her. Now it was gone without a trace. We need to tell Lady Forma, Oluchi said firmly, without wasting time. They dialed Lady Forma's number and she picked up almost immediately. Having secured the evidence, she asked urgently as Oni swallowed hard and revealed to her that the car was missing. A sharp intake of breath came from the other end. What do you mean missing? I parked it at my house. It was there, but now it's gone. Lady Forma's voice dropped to a whisper. She urged Oni to hide, revealing that her husband had been acting strangely since morning. He left the house in a rush this morning. After receiving a phone call, Lady Forma said to Oni, who felt a lump form in her throat. She was so terrified of what Chief would do to her and began to think of what to do next. Just as they sat there confused, Lady Forma called up her phone again to reveal that Chief had sent some men after them. Oni, listen to me. I think my husband sent his men after you. You need to disappear, she said as she hung up the phone. Oni and her friend Oluchi began to tremble. They could not let Chief's men meet them in the house, so they picked up a few items and scampered for safety. Just as they were about running out of the house, a group of armed men stormed into the house and caught them. Oni and Oluchi froze as the armed men stormed in. Their hearts pounded wildly. There was nowhere else to run. Don't move. One of the men barked. He's gone in directly at them. He walked towards them, lowering his gaze when he suddenly saw Oni and froze in shock. Madam, he said excitedly as Oni looked at him confused. Do I know you? She asked the man who pulled down his mask to reveal his face. Oni could not believe her eyes. Before her was a man who she had once helped. Years ago, when she catered for a huge event, a hungry-looking man approached her to beg for food. His clothes were tattered and his face was sunken with hunger. Oni gave him a large portion of food and even packed some extra for him to take home. Now, the same man was standing before her with a gun in his hand. You helped me once, he said, lowering his weapon completely. You gave me food when I had nothing, he continued as Oni swallowed her, wondering what her fate would be now that she had seen his face. The other armed men looked at their boss in confusion. They asked what they should do with them, and their boss ordered that they be released. Oni, still trembling in fear, asked the man why Chief wanted them dead, and the man revealed to her that he didn't work for Chief. Oni and her friend Oluchi looked at each other stunned as Oni asked him who he worked for. The man shook his head as he stared right at her. I work for someone else? Someone who is even more dangerous. A chill ran down Oni's spine as she asked who it was. The man hesitated, glancing at his men. Then, he lowered his voice and revealed that he worked for Lady Foma. Oni's heart stopped. What? She asked, shocked to her marrow. Oni could not believe what she was hearing. All the while, she believed Chief was behind the disappearance of his daughter, not knowing that the woman that she so trusted was the devil in disguise. Oni could not help but wonder why. Chief Emeka is the one everyone believes is responsible for Chinello's disappearance. The man shook his head as he looked her right in the eyes. That's what she wanted everyone to believe. You mean Lady Foma was behind it all? The man nodded in agreement. Lady Foma planned everything. Chinello was never really her daughter. Oni felt the air leave her lungs. What do you mean? The man's face was grim. The day Lady Foma gave birth, she lost her child. The baby didn't survive, but no one knew, not even Chief. She paid off a nurse at the hospital to switch her dead child with another newborn baby. Oni's niece felt weak. She stumbled, gripping Oluchi's arm for support. The man continued. That newborn was Chinello. She was never really Chief's daughter, but Chief loved her like she was. He adored her. He raised her with so much love and affection. Whilst Lady Foma was filled with jealousy, Oni felt sick. She was jealous of her own daughter. Oni acted shockingly as the man corrected her, saying that Lady Foma was jealous because Chinello wasn't her daughter. Chief favored Chinello over everyone, including his own wife. He wrote his will and left everything to Chinello, and Lady Foma could not stand the thought of a complete stranger inheriting all that her husband had worked for. Oluchi gasped. That's why she killed her? The man nodded. Lady Foma could not stand it. She had lived in Chief's shadows for years, and now everything was about to go to a girl who wasn't even her real daughter. She knew she had to eliminate Chinello before the truth came out. Oni clutched her chest as she asked about the haunted car, and the man revealed to her that Chinello was killed inside that car. I was there when it happened, and it was so painful to watch. Tears welled up in Oni's eyes as she wondered how wicked a woman would be to kill a child that she raised as her own. She had to make Lady Foma pay for her wrong and pleaded with the man to help. Help me bring her down, or else she will come after us all, she said to the man who handed her an envelope with some pictures and an address showing where Chinelo was buried. When Oni looked at the address, she realized that it was the same address where the strange car had taken her to. It all began to make more sense to Oni, who took the photos to the police. The moment Oni handed the envelope to the police, everything changed. The officer in charge carefully examined the photographs. His expression darkened as he asked where she got the photos. Oni swallowed hard, revealing that she got it from someone who used to work for Lady Foma. The officer exchanged glances with his colleague. If this is true, Lady Foma has more blood on her hands than we ever imagined. Immediately, he picked up his radio and called for backup. That night, a team of officers surrounded the house where Chinelo was buried. They moved in silently, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The eerie quiet of the backyard sent chills down Oni's spine as she stood with Oluchi, watching from a distance. Then, they started digging. The first thing they uncovered was a piece of fabric, which was badly stained with blood. Moments later, the officers uncovered a body in a shallow grave. The discovery